Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves quite a show, as we have a lot to get into in the world of Southern California sports, such as the Chargers hiring their new GM. Who did they hire, and is this a beneficial hire? The Rams, on the other hand, they have named their new defensive coordinator. They've had a few comings and goings, which is good and bad. Hopefully the Rams, for their sake, they can reload instead of rebuild. And the Lakers beat the Celtics without LeBron and AD after 2 straight losses on their Grammy road trip. Is this a sign that the Lakers can actually get it together? And the Clippers are just kicking butt and taking names, despite a loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Also, the LA Kings just fired their new head coach. Who did they name as their interim coach? And we also have the Busch Light Clash. Yes, we're going to be talking about some motorsports here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, as that's going to be this Sunday at the Los Angeles Coliseum. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon, Friday morning, Friday evening, Friday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 166 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And without any further delay, let us begin. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be live without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow us on Twitter, now known as X, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook page. All you just have to do is type in the word IE Sports then Radio in the search bar, like us, and then that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, iesportsradio.com, for all your latest sports news, our blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, our community forum, and our merchandise shop. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. And a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, it's low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and all you have to do is visit planetjerky.net and place your order. In addition, some of the prices are slashed on the website, so get the Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky while you can at a discounted price. Also, if you buy an order's worth of $50 or more, you get shipping for free! Once again, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet. And the way you can follow the SoCal Supreme Sports Show on social media is on X, formerly known as Twitter, at SoCal Show IESR. And you can follow me, Teran Rodriguez, on X as well, at Teran Rodriguez1. That's where I'm mainly active. And without any further delay, let us begin. So we have to begin with the Chargers, as obviously football is king. And I know they're not playing in the Super Bowl, but they actually were in the news for some good reasons. One of which was their new hiring of their new GM. So, Oh, and also yesterday was the official press conference for the opening press conference for Jim Harbaugh, which is great. But obviously that's big, seeing the introduction of Jim Harbaugh, and I really hope he can really help the Chargers out. I think he definitely has what it takes to turn them around, but I digress. So, going with Joe Hortwitz, their new GM. So, Joe Hortwitz is it Hortwitz or Hortz? Joe Hortiz. I'm sorry, not Joe Hortz. Joe Hortiz. He basically was hired on the Chargers 3 days ago, and it was official that they agreed terms to Joe Hortiz, which is good. So his experience was mainly with the Baltimore Ravens. He was a personal assistant from 1998 to 2000, a pro scout from 2000 to 2002, an area scout from 2003 to 2005, a national scout from 2006 to 2008, a director of college scouting from 2009 all the way to 2018, and a director of player personnel from 2019 all the way to 2023. Now he's the new GM for the Chargers, which I think is great. I think it's a really good hire, and I think he was pretty much high on the Chargers list to begin with, which I think is pretty good right there. And again, him being part of the Ravens, which has had more often than not some success. And John Spanos said, Joe is one of the most respected player evaluators and personnel minds in the league, whose contributions to the Ravens front office over the past 2 decades cannot be overstated. When you consider his football IQ, eye for talent, ability to think both short and long term as it pertains to roster construction, organization, thoroughness, and ability to be creative within the confines of our collective bargaining agreement, it's hard not to be excited for the future. And that's from John Spanos. I'm not going to read all of the quotes and whatnot. And Hortiz was part of Baltimore's Super Bowl 40 or 37 roster, and he brought 26 seasons of NFL experience to the Los Angeles Chargers, and he has a track record of building complete teams through the draft and free agency, and that's big right there, because nothing against Tom Telesco. I think he had good intentions, and he had a lot of good players that he drafted, such as Keenan Allen, Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Rashawn Slater, Justin Herbert, the list goes on and on. But there were some iffy drafts. Like, I think Kevin Lamp was an iffy draft pick, as he eventually went to the Jets. There's also the obvious J.C. Jackson signing, where everyone now questions Telesco, where they eventually traded him back to New England for nothing but like a bag of Doritos and whatnot. But that's an insult to Doritos. So all in all, for this new GM signing, I think it's great, and I think this is definitely going to be a fun little thing for the Chargers. And he says, when you had the privilege of working with one organization your entire career, something that's exceedingly rare in our business, the opportunity and fit has to pretty much be perfect to consider a change. This is that opportunity. The Chargers brand, the uniforms, foundation building blocks already on the roster, a new training facility, SoFi Stadium, and clear commitment from the Spanos family to dedicate every resource possible toward bringing a Lombardi Trophy home to our fans. It's all there. And I agree. I think the Chargers definitely have something going. The problem is that they were highly bitten by the injury bug, which obviously sucks. But it is what it is. But there is some, now that we go to that, that's actually a perfect segue to go into the next thing that the Chargers actually hired, as they actually hired someone they hired someone in regards to their training staff. As honestly, I think his name was like Bert Herbert or something along those lines, or Bill Herbert. Either way, they hired someone regarding their new training facility and their player personnel, and I think it's quite fun. So all in all, for the Chargers, they're actually making some good hires, which is good, and I hope for the sake of the Chargers, they can actually turn around, as Yeah, last year was just such a disappointment with all the injuries and whatnot, and then the blowout. So there you have it right there, and I'm still trying to get the confirmation of the new name for the Chargers. But I'm liking what I'm seeing when it comes to the Chargers. I think the Chargers definitely have a lot of upside, but it's all about, putting it all together. So we'll see what happens. So I hope the Chargers can put all their you-know-what together. And with Jim Harbaugh, I'm excited for the future. So we'll see what happens. All right, but that is that for the Chargers. I do want to talk a little about the Rams just because they have named their new defensive coordinator. So they actually did interview Brandon Staley, which I thought was rather fascinating if you ask me, just because he has had experience with the Rams as their defensive coordinator. But they did hire someone else. They actually promoted someone to their new defensive coordinator as Chris Shula. If you're not familiar with the last name, he's actually the grandson of Don Shula. He actually has been promoted to the Rams defensive coordinator, which is pretty unique just because, if I recall correctly, he was a linebackers coach. So Shula actually takes over the role of defensive coordinator after serving as the linebackers coach, pass rush coordinator in 2023, which is good. So at least he has familiarity with the Rams program, and I'm glad he got the promotion, and he deserves it. So he actually started off with Sean McVay back in 2017 as an assistant linebackers coach, as Sean McVay's staff took firm control in that year. And he was the outside linebackers coach in 2019 and 20, and then he returned as the linebackers coach in 2021 before shifting to the defensive backs coach / pass game coordinator in 2022. So honestly, I think this is good. I think it's good for the Rams that they are getting their hires in regarding their defensive coordinator. And I'm so glad they didn't hire Brandon Staley, and nothing against it, but Brandon Staley was literally carried by Aaron Donald. There's no better way of saying it. Now, the Rams obviously have their new defensive coordinator. However, they have been losing their other coaches left to right, as the Patriots just hired the Rams assistant special teams coach, Jeremy Springer. Why did I say Jerry Springer? Jeremy Springer as the new special teams coach, which obviously sucks, but hey, at least the Sean McVay coaching tree is blossoming, which is great. And then, obviously, the Rams. And I also should mention from the Chargers, they lost their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, as he's heading to the Philadelphia Eagles. But it looks like Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers are going to be bringing in the offensive coordinator from Michigan, which is good. And then Zach Robinson was hired as the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons under Raheem Morris. So, yeah, the Rams just seem to have a lot of hot coaching hires, which is great. I think it's pretty fun if you ask me. So, if you ask me, it just goes to show that Sean McVay is legit a good coach, and he does develop really good coaches regarding his coaching staff. And I think it's great. It's really great if you ask me. However, I just think that the Rams are still missing a couple pieces. They're missing a cornerback. I think they might be missing a few offensive linemen to protect Matthew Stafford. And that is, I wouldn't say that's pretty much it, but those are just the few missing pieces that the Rams are missing. Soon they will be having their complete roster, because I feel they could have beaten the Lions. Like, if this were their roster from 2 years ago, they would have for sure beaten the Lions in the wild card round. They just fell 1 point short, which is a bummer, but it is what it is. So jumping back to the Chargers, I actually do want to circle back to the Chargers and them losing Kellen Moore. At least the Chargers are getting a total revamp of their offense. Yes, it sucks that Kellen Moore is moving on to the Eagles, but his play calling was a little 50-50. He wanted to get the run game involved and he wanted to put a lot of points on the board. It just didn't work out. So it is what it is. So regarding the Chargers draft, Daniel Jeremiah of NFL.com says that the Chargers should draft Rome Odunze from Washington. And then Will Helms from Pro Football Network says that the Chargers will be drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, that is good and all, but will Marvin Harrison Jr. be available at number 5? The only way I see it is if the Chargers trade up to like the Cardinals and then they get their 4th round pick and then they have to ship off somebody or some extra picks for the Cardinals' 4th round or 4th overall pick. I think that would be great if the Chargers got Marvin Harrison Jr., and hopefully he could be a massive upgrade from Quentin Johnston. That was disappointing. But Marvin Harrison Jr. would be so great. Moving on to some of the other possible picks from the Chargers, Deontay Lee of The Athletic says the Chargers should select offensive tackle J.C. Latham from Alabama. Now, that's good and all, and I really think the Chargers do need to beef up their own line. I don't really see, other than the running back position, because I feel they'll let Austin Eckler walk. I just think that maybe another offensive tackle would be great. They need a right tackle, which would be so crucial. I mean, obviously they have Zion Johnson, and they have Jamari Salyer, but getting J.C. Latham, who was from Alabama, he's big right there. And then Josh Edwards from CBS Sports says that he goes with my pick, that the Chargers should draft Brock Bowers from Georgia. Now, obviously Phillip Rivers had Antonio Gates. Justin Herbert could have Brock Bowers, who was one of the best tight ends in the freaking college football scene this past season. And same goes with Bucky Brooks of NFL.com. Chargers should draft Brock Bowers. And then same with Chris Traspasso, Brock Bowers. Now, this one is a little bit interesting. Vinny Iyer of Sporting News says that the Chargers should draft edge rusher Dallas Turner from Alabama. He says going for Turner as a developing cornerstone makes sense, as he has a lot of former teammate Will Anderson's game in him, or Will Anderson Jr.'s game in him. All right, well, that's not bad. So there you have it right there in terms of that. I guess that's okay. I mean, the Chargers still have Joey Bosa, but maybe they don't want to pay him that much just because he's kind of injury prone. And I feel they should keep Khalil Mack. I'm just saying, I think Khalil Mack with the Chargers has kind of revitalized his career after rough goes with the Chicago Bears and how he kind of had a falling out with the Raiders. But it is what it is. So Connor Livesay of the 33rd team says Brock Bowers to the Chargers. Rob Gang, Fox Sports says Brock Bowers to the Chargers. Justin Mello, Draft Network says Brock Bowers to the Chargers. And that's pretty much that for the Chargers mock drafts. Now, if you're not seeing the theme of this, everyone says Brock Bowers to the Chargers. I say Brock Bowers to the Chargers. It makes so much freaking sense. They have the wide receiver core. I feel Keenan Allen said in the Pro Bowl that he wants to stay a Charger for life. They have Mike Williams, who I feel, didn't they just extend him last offseason? They still have Joshua Palmer, who I think is on the last year of his rookie contract. They have Jalen Guyton, who they tendered to last year, and I know he missed most of the season because he was on the PUP list to begin, but he definitely has a lot of upside with him being such a speedster. And also they have Darius Davis, who is their kind of punt returner, but he could also play wide receiver. And then they have Quentin Johnston, who I don't think they should give up on. Yes, Quentin Johnston had such an awful rookie year, but he can definitely turn it around. I hope for the sake of the Chargers that it's not going to nip them in the butt just because, well, for starters, they had a few other top wide receivers go in the draft, such as Zay Flowers of the Ravens, who had himself a nice little rookie year. Jordan Addison of Pitt/USC, who had a solid year with the Vikings, even though they were battling quarterback issues after Kirk Cousins fell for the rest of the year. So unless, of course, the Chargers want to trade Quentin Johnston or any of their wide receivers, and then they want to get like Malik Neighbors from LSU or Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State, if he's available. I think the Chargers should actually go with freaking Brock Bowers. It makes all the more sense because I think Gerald Everett is going to be a free agent. And if I recall correctly, back a couple seasons ago when Brandon Staley took over as head coach, they signed Everett to a 2-year deal, which now that 2-year deal is kind of up. So for the Chargers, actually no, it was when the Chargers did make the playoffs. It was Staley's second year where the Chargers signed Gerald Everett from the Rams. So all in all for the Chargers, I think they definitely need a little bit more youth. Brock Bowers definitely is that kind of guy. And again, some of the great quarterbacks that have played the game, like Tom Brady, he had Rob Gronkowski. Patrick Mahomes has Travis Kelce. The list goes on and on. So all these great quarterbacks had a reliable tight end. And soon, if and when the Chargers draft Brock Bowers, he will eventually become Justin Herbert's reliable tight end. So I'm hoping the Chargers do draft. I hope they draft smart. I'm sure they'll draft as smart as possible. If they trade down, I will be so PO'd. That is the last thing I want to see. I don't want to see that unless they get a massive haul of picks, then I could understand it. But you're then missing out on Brock Bowers or a good wide receiver or a good offensive tackle or a good edge rusher or anyone of that sort. Maybe even a good cornerback. I feel that the Chargers should definitely keep the 5th pick and draft Brock Bowers. So there you have it. And then the Rams, look, the Rams is kind of complicated because they actually have a good roster as is. I think what they're really ailing in, like I said earlier, is cornerback. I feel getting cornerbacks such as Kool-Aid McKinstry, yes, that is the most amazing name out there. Just going to throw that out there. Kool-Aid McKinstry might be the best name ever. But getting a cornerback like him would be quite phenomenal. I think that the Rams would definitely benefit from that. And I actually do want to see some mock drafts regarding the Rams, just because the Rams, unfortunately, did not post any, which makes me unhappy. But I would like to see the Rams draft a cornerback or an offensive lineman. If they do, then awesome. But if they don't, then we'll see what happens with them. And they don't need a wide receiver. They don't need a running back. I hope to God they don't need a quarterback because Matthew Stafford is coming back. So it's just a wait and see. Maybe they'll draft best available, not including quarterback. But the Rams are a few pieces away from actually being a threat in the NFC yet again. And I think it's definitely possible that they can be a threat yet again. But again, it's just a wait and see process. I think it's a time will tell process, and I really want to see some mock drafts regarding the Rams. Because I saw one that said they should draft Bo Nix, which makes no sense, just because they have Matthew Stafford, and then they also have the quarterback from Georgia from a year ago. But what can you do when it comes to like certain drafts? To each his own, I guess. So that is pretty much that for the Rams and Chargers. If I see any like mock drafts regarding the Rams, I really want to go over it just because I think the Rams and the Chargers are in good situations. Because let's be honest, the Rams have the 19th pick. Some are going to scoff and say, well, the 19th pick isn't all that great, right? No, I think it actually is, because they were, of all the playoff teams, they're going to be the first playoff team that selects in the draft in terms of the later rounds or the later parts of the first round. So you have that right there. It's just me saying that look at the glass half full instead of half empty, which makes me kind of say that the Rams losing to the Steelers might have been the best thing, because if they lost to the Steelers, they'd be picking 20th and whatnot. If not, maybe 21st. So There you go. All right, but so far I am not seeing any mock drafts, which is it's okay. And all in all, I'm not overly concerned for it. So there you go. There you have it in regards to the Chargers and the Rams. So let's move on to some college hoops. All right, college hoops. And I also got to give a shout to Ralph Calise in the chat room. He says, hello, Teran, have a great show. And he also talks about the Lakers having a great win last night. I agree, and thank you, Ralph. And Larry B says, SoCal. Appreciate you popping in the chat room, Larry. So, jumping over to some NCAA men's and women's basketball. All right, so I'm just going to say this right now. I am concerned for USC. USC, you're really starting to really concern me. Why? Because they just can't win anything anymore. I think they're pretty much on the verge of not making the NCAA tournament, and it's getting really bad for the USC Trojans men's basketball team. As sadly, in the press conference, well, I guess I should mention that USC lost to Oregon last night. I'm bearing the lead here. So USC lost to Oregon last night, 78-69. Nice. As USC has now dropped, well, they dropped their first game of February, but they now have lost 6 in a row. So ever since that great win over Stanford, USC has not won ever since. Last Saturday, USC lost to UCLA at home 65-50. And it just seemed like they just stopped caring. This was the game where USC just did not give two flying you-know-whats when it came to this game. They just tried it out there thinking, oh, we're going to see if we can win. It's like, really? You gave that effort in a rivalry game against UCLA on your home floor? Lots of people were lined up, like, I want to say maybe 3 miles. According to what I saw from USC beat reporters, that students were lining up like an hour in advance, if not maybe longer than an hour in advance, to get to this game. And USC puts out that hideous effort, losing by 15 to UCLA at Galen Center. That's just bad, dude. I'm sorry, but that is just awful effort. And I think this is becoming more of a concern. Yes, I get it. They don't have Isaiah Collier for another 2 or so weeks. But the effort just wasn't there. And the thing is, everyone's going to say, well, look at the stats. Well, the stats are kind of misguiding. USC missed 6 free throws and shot 62% from the charity stripe, even though UCLA also missed 6 free throws. They were out-rebounded 43-29. They turned the ball over. Well, they didn't turn the ball over all that much, but still, points in the paint, they got dominated. They got a technical foul, and their only largest lead was 7, while UCLA's was 18. So I'm really just so concerned for USC, and I'm starting to get the feeling that extending Andy Enfield was a terrible decision. Horrible, awful, god-awful, and he's starting to feel the heat now. And I'm just going to say that extending him might have been the worst idea, because he's extended all the way to 2029. Is there any chance USC can rescind that extension? Just asking for a few of my friends who, don't like Andy Enfield and is starting to become extremely concerned, and they just are just saying fire Enfield. I'm just saying. But all in all, for USC, losing 6 straight is just a massive concern, as they've got Oregon State this Saturday at the Galen Center. Now, they got to win that one. If USC can't win that one, then I don't know when they're going to win. And honestly, that game starts at 4 p.m. The only team worse, USC is the worst team in the Pac-12 conference. And this is sad, because USC actually had a lot of high expectations going in, and now they have a 2-8 record to show for it. But USC is facing the second worst team in the Pac-12 on Saturday. If they can't win that, then USC might go down as the most disappointing team in college basketball. And that says a lot about the Trojans, just because they had so much potential this year. They had a great class of 2023 that came in. They had Isaiah Collier. They had Bronny James, even though he suffered a heart attack on the court and he eventually came back. But USC has just been so massively disappointing. And I know the Pac-12 is decent, but it's not world beater like. It's not like the Big Ten or the Big East or the SEC or the Big 12. They're not like all world beaters. There's only one ranked team, and that is Arizona. And Arizona doesn't even have a massive grip on the conference, as Arizona only has a 1-game lead over Washington State and Colorado. And that's another thing. Arizona is tied with Oregon for the top spot in the Pac-12 conference. So I think USC just is not playing up to its potential. And one of the reasons is probably Andy Enfield. And Enfield, in his press conference, he actually went straight into the questions. He did not have an opening statement. He just said, let's go straight into questions. And he actually, this is his response regarding to USC buying in. So he says, our guys, they always blame the coaching staff when they don't play minutes. If they want to play more minutes, they can defend and rebound. That's your response, dude? Okay, I get it. Okay, first and foremost, USC players complaining about their playing time is massively concerning. This isn't freaking high school, dude. You have to be playing at the highest level. Second of all, that's just a sign that USC or Andy Enfield is losing the USC locker room. If the players are complaining about playing time and they're just wanting to be about themselves and not the whole team, I think Andy Enfield and maybe his coaching staff could be the problem. And that's just a massive concern right there, just because you can't have players just whining and complaining about playing time. And your response saying they can defend and rebound, well, they're doing all that they can, but it's kind of tough when your number one recruit is out for 4 to 6 weeks, and he still has 2 to 4 weeks left in terms of his injury. So you got to basically do what you need to do, Enfield. That's a kind of a you problem, and you and your coaching staff needs to figure that out. And I'm just going to say it right now. I think Long Beach State, and this is coming from a Long Beach State alum, I think Long Beach State broke USC. Everyone was so hyped up about Bronny James making his debut for USC. And everyone was... The game that USC played Long Beach State was billed for was basically a big-time game. The celebs were out and about. It was a packed crowd. I don't know if it was sold out, but I will say USC put up a dud. They blew a 17-point lead. It was a 19-point lead. It was a 17-point halftime lead, and then they lost in overtime for those that forgot all the way back in, I think, December. And that's just sad right there. You have to be pretty bad in order to blow a 19-point lead to Long Beach State. And that's no disrespect to Long Beach State or the Big West, but I'm just saying, USC, which had a lot of expectations, which had one of the top, if not the top recruit in the class of 2023, just went about it like it was nobody's business. And that's what really makes me concerned about USC. Now for the other team, UCLA. All right, well, UCLA, they aren't as bad as they were when they lost to Cal, and then when they got demolished by Utah. But like I said, they bounced back after they lost to Arizona. They beat USC. Last night they also beat Oregon State 71-63. So ever since they got drubbed by Utah, they've actually won 5 of their last 6, I'm sorry, not 5 of their last 6, 4 of their last 5. Again, I was pretty bad at math, but I digress. So at least UCLA is figuring things out, as Saturday they host Oregon on ESPN2, which I'm willing to bet that Bill Walton's going to be on the call. At least UCLA has some upside. They're still they're still 2 games back of Arizona and Oregon, and that's a very distant 2 games back, because you've got Arizona State and Utah lumped in with them. You also got Stanford, Colorado, and Washington State ahead of them. And like I said, Oregon and Arizona are the kings of the Pac-12 for the time being. But it's still within UCLA's grasp. The problem with the Bruins is that they're just so young. They're young and inexperienced, but at least they're trending back toward 500. They're 1 game below 500, and a win over Oregon would definitely put them back into contention for the Pac-12 regular season championship. But I'm not expecting too much from UCLA, especially since they've had a bunch of losses at home, losing to Maryland, CSUN, I think they lost to Stanford, they lost to Cal. So UCLA still needs some work, but at least they're doing better than they were in the preseason. Now let's jump to the Big West Conference. So UC Irvine and UC San Diego are both 9-1 to lead the conference, which is good, as Irvine just beat Cal Poly 73-59, and that is quite nice as UC San Diego trounced CSUN, or Cal State Northridge, 83-62. So that's good stuff right there. UC Santa Barbara is the fourth, and Long Beach State, they're both the fourth and fifth place team, as they're right below UC Davis. They're 3 games back of UC Davis, which, like I mentioned in the past, is not SoCal. CSUN is 4-6, and Cal State Fullerton as well as 4-6, as well as Cal State Bakersfield, who just beat Long Beach State last night. UC Riverside is 3-7, and Cal Poly sadly is bringing up the rear at 0-10, which is saddening. But it's all good. I'm really interested to see what UC San Diego can do. I know they're not eligible for the Big West Conference Tournament or the NCAA Tournament because they're still in that. They're in that Division II to Division I transition. But the fact that they're playing spoiler to so many teams and they're looking really good shows that they have a bright future in NCAA men's basketball. And most recruits and players would probably shy away from UC San Diego, but players are still buying into playing for the Trojans, and I think they can they're definitely having a bright future on the horizon. So we'll see what happens with the Trojans. For UC Irvine, they are back at it tomorrow when they host Hawaii. That's going to be a good matchup. And then they've got UC Santa Barbara, which should also be another good matchup right there. So for the Anteaters, they also play UC San Diego at UC San Diego on Saturday, February 24th. That's going to be a real good one. That could determine first place in the regular season. But, I don't know. I mean, UC Irvine's probably going to get the top seed of the conference tournament, but time will tell regarding this whole thing. All right, that is that for the Big West. Jumping over to some West Coast Conference men's basketball, well, San Diego's kind of the only team that is above 500, and they stink. Let me just get that out of the way. They stink. They're second to last in the conference, along with Pepperdine. LMU is the best SoCal team in the West Coast Conference regarding the conference, but they're a distant 5th place from Santa Clara and San Francisco. I really am irked that the West Coast Conference stinks regarding men's basketball. San Diego lost to San Francisco last night, 95-79. That was a bummer right there. And then LMU lost to Gonzaga on Tuesday, 92-58. Kind of tough to really harp on that just because Gonzaga is a world beater. And even though they did lose to Santa Clara, they're still having a great year. And then Pepperdine lost to San Diego last Saturday, 69-67, as Pepperdine's back at tomorrow when they hit the road to take on Portland. So that is the West Coast Conference right there in a nutshell. You're not missing much regarding that conference in terms of SoCal. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. It just is very infuriating seeing San Diego, LMU, and Pepperdine just not living up to snuff, or being up to snuff. All right, jumping over to San Diego State and the Mountain West Conference. So San Diego State, this past Tuesday, they beat Colorado State 79-71, which is good. Or I'm sorry, they lost to Colorado State 79-71, which is bad. I'm sorry. I was getting that mixed up. So San Diego State is still 2 games back of first place of Utah State, and they're still 1 game back of Boise State and University of New Mexico. And speaking of those Utah State Aggies, San Diego State hosts them on Saturday. I'd be very surprised if San Diego State won. I really want them to, just because I really want San Diego State to make the NCAA tournament. It's looking like we might not get a whole lot of SoCal teams, unless it's from like the Big West and, well, certainly not the West Coast Conference. But I think we're only going to get like maybe the Big West and maybe San Diego State. But San Diego State playing Utah State this Saturday is a huge game for the Aztecs. And then Tuesday, San Diego State hits the road to Colorado to take on Air Force. And then next Friday, San Diego State hits the road to take on Nevada, which should be fun times. So big game on Saturday, and then a semi-big game on Tuesday, and then a huge game next Friday as well. And then after that, they've got Colorado State and New Mexico and Utah State. Like, the 13th of February is when... Actually, no. Next Friday is when San Diego State begins the gauntlet, as San Diego State begins its gauntlet against Nevada, and then it only gets tougher from here. This month is really going to test San Diego State, and if they want to be the champions of the Mountain West Conference, they got to be like champions. I'm just saying. It may sound cliche, but it's the truth. I feel they've been up and down, which is not ideal for them, but it is what it is. All right, so lastly, in terms of Southern California college hoops, we have CBU, which in their previous game, or their last game, they beat Stephen F. Austin on the road 81-79. Well, that is the good news. You want to know what else is good news? CBU is now third in the WAC, which is awesome sauce. It's only a half a game back of Tarleton. That's the good news. The bad news is they're still 3 games back of Grand Canyon. But they're having a great year. But, hey, CBU is having a solid year. As CBU is back in action this Saturday when they host Seattle. And then Thursday, CBU hosts UT Arlington. Or this upcoming Thursday, they have UT Arlington. And then next Saturday, they hit the road to take on Utah Tech. So, at least CBU men's hoops is looking good. They're not getting outshunned like on the women's side compared to USC, so I digress. And speaking of women's hoops in USC, let's jump over to some college women's hoops. So USC and UCLA. So USC, they bounced back nicely from their loss to Colorado and Utah as they beat Washington State on Friday 70-62. That's the good news. The bad news is they lost to Washington 62-59, which is so unfortunate. The thing is that they actually were not led by Juju Watkins, as Juju Watkins had 19 points. Kayla Padilla led the way with 20 points, which, oh man, that's a little concerning if you ask me. But I guess that it just goes to show that USC needs to get Juju Watkins all the help that she needs. She needs to she can't just carry the team every night like she kind of did against USC against Washington State. She had 29 points in that win, which was a good win against Washington State. Washington State is a solid team, as I'm about to discuss that a little bit later. But USC winning that one is pretty good. Now, USC losing to Washington was not good, as USC falls from 11 all the way down to 15 in the AP poll, as they're back in action tonight when they hit the road to Northern California to take on Stanford. And then Sunday, USC heads down to Berkeley to take on Cal. So, like I said, USC continues to get challenged in terms of its rank, in terms of the conference. They face a lot of good competition. They've already gotten some of the competition out of the way when they had to play the likes of Colorado and Utah and UCLA. The Oregon schools kind of made them sweat. But for USC, I still think that they're still doing decent. The problem is I don't think they're going to win the Pac-12. And again, this is where you really are hurt when it comes to not scheduling tough instead of scheduling locally. Now for UCLA, well, I should mention that USC is three and a half games back of the top spot in the Pac-12. Now for UCLA, they had a bit of an iffy week as well. Obviously, Friday, they dominated Washington 62-44, which is a good bounce-back win after they fell in overtime to Utah. But then on Sunday, they lost to Washington State at home 85-82, which is so tough. But you want to know what was worse for UCLA is that they actually lost to Washington State despite one of their top players, Legger Walker, suffering a knee injury, which obviously sucks, as Carlise Legger Walker suffered a knee injury during the second half, and that really stunk for Washington State. But the thing is that UCLA needs to take advantage of that. I know you don't want to sound mean, but honestly, UCLA, you can't afford to lose games like that. I know the Pac-12 is so stacked from top to bottom in women's hoops. However, you can't lose on your home floor. You're the number 2 freaking team in the nation. And you're playing at home. It was looking like you were actually going to be freaking good again. But now you're kind of back to square one where you suffered a tough loss. And it was a tough, close loss. I know the Utah loss was by 13, but that was in overtime. That could have easily been avoided. UCLA losing to Washington State also could have been avoided just because Washington State lost one of their top players. Oh, gee, mini Christmas, dude. And how valuable Carlise Legger-Walker is that she is actually an AP All-American honorable mention last season, and it was a non-contact injury. So, and the thing was that Washington State actually led by quite a bit, as they led by as many as 20 until UCLA started chipping away at the lead in the second half. The unfortunate thing is that UCLA just could not hold on, or they just couldn't complete the comeback, even though they only went to the free throw line 15 times. Washington State went to the free throw line 34 times. And Corey Close, the head coach, she was kind of a little emotional. I don't know if she was emotional about her team. I did see a little bit of the press conference, and I felt so horrible for her. I mean, she just looked like she was dejected in regards to that following the game. But I'd have to look back on the press conference again, but she just sounded so broken. And I feel for her. And I feel for UCLA, even though I'm an SC guy. Anyway, so UCLA is back in action as they hit the road to Berkeley to take on Cal tonight. And then Sunday they get a matinee matchup as they continue their NorCal trip to take on number 4 Stanford. Again, it's a big test for UCLA as UCLA is 2.5 games back of first place Stanford. They're a half a game back of Oregon State, and they're 1.5 games back of Colorado. So the margin of error in terms of trying to get that top spot in the Pac-12 conference, in terms of the conference tournament and the regular season title, is very, very slim. So we'll see what happens with the Bruins this weekend. I definitely think they have they're on the verge of bouncing back, but time will tell. And because of their loss to Washington State, UCLA fell from number 2 to number 7 in the AP polls. But it's all good because UCLA still has time to get their you-know-what together. I think they will, though. All right, jumping over to some women's hoops. So, in terms of the Big West Conference, in terms of women's hoops, UC Irvine is tied for first place with Hawaii at 8-2. UC Santa Barbara is not too far back as they're 7-3. Cal Poly is 6-4. However, they actually, in their most recent game, yesterday's game, they actually had to forfeit to Cal Poly, as it doesn't say. I imagine it's because they don't have enough players. That was kind of but here's the thing. Cal Poly forfeited this game to UC Irvine. So when UC Irvine couldn't play their games, how come they did not forfeit their games to certain opponents? Why was their game ruled a no contest? Why is this game a forfeit? Can anyone please explain that to me? I'm just confused. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't... I'm not trying to defend Long Beach State or any of the other teams that could have deserved that regular season conference title, just because in the end it didn't really matter, as Hawaii wound up winning the whole conference tournament anyway. But it just is a little unfair for Long Beach State because they played all their games and they basically overcame everything, and unfortunately they wound up losing. They wound up losing on the last day, and then UC Irvine wound up winning on the last day, and they pretty much did everything they could to win the regular season conference title. So now we're getting this whole rule of Cal Poly is forced to forfeit because of probably not enough players and whatnot. So, if you're a Long Beach State fan, you got to be sick to your stomach seeing that, just because, well, for starters, it just sucks, dude. Because they did everything in their power to try to do that, to try to win. to try to win that conference, and then they just fell short, which sucks. But it is what it is. And yes, this is due to members of the Cal Poly women's basketball team being ill. The road game against UC Irvine has been canceled and will not be made up and will count as a forfeit. So, yeah, that counts as a forfeit. Last year, when UC Irvine didn't have enough players, it was not counted as a forfeit. It was counted as no contest. Make it make sense, Big West Conference. I'm not just trying to say that because I'm a Long Beach State guy or a Long Beach State alum, but still, why does that have to be a forfeit? Why are you now implementing the forfeit rule this year as opposed to last year? Holy crap, dude. Anyway, I'm getting too ahead of myself, or too full of myself, if you ask me. So, UC Irvine is back in action Saturday. Like I said, they play Hawaii, and then next Thursday they head down to. They return home to play UC Santa Barbara, which should be a big-time matchup right there. And between Santa Barbara, Irvine, Hawaii, and UC Davis, and Cal Poly, once they get healthy, I think any of those can win the conference in terms of the regular season. The conference tournament is going to be probably a wild ride. I think any team can win that conference tournament, so time will tell. All right, but that's that for the Big West Conference. Jumping over to the not-so-best Coast Conference in terms of SoCal teams. LMU is probably the best team in that conference regarding the SoCal teams. But they did lose yesterday to Santa Clara 63-49. But they beat their PCH Cup foe Pepperdine 75-59 on Saturday. That's good. But no team from Southern California is 500 or better. And San Diego is the worst of the bunch. They're dead last. They haven't won a conference game. Do I even need to talk about their last game against Gonzaga? They got stomped at home 80-52. I don't need to go over anything more. And then last night, Pepperdine lost to San Francisco 78-54. Like I said, it's basically a funeral home when it comes to talking about the West Coast Conference in terms of the Southern California teams. I'm sorry, it's the truth. And San Diego, I felt bad for them last Saturday. They lost to Portland at home 64-59. And, that would have been such a great win for the Lady Toreros. But sadly, it wasn't. But it is what it is, and it's just, you got to move on. And hopefully for their sake, they can at least win one conference game. I can't imagine they would go winless in conference play. That would be sad right there. That would be bad. All right, jumping over to San Diego State in women's basketball, they managed to get back into the W column as they beat Boise State last Saturday 79-54. So they now have won 3 straight after they beat San Jose State the previous Saturday, and they beat Utah State not this past Wednesday, but last Wednesday. So the Lady Aztecs are back in action tomorrow when they hit the road to the Rocky Mountains to take on Colorado State. Currently in the standings, San Diego State is 3 games back of UNLV as the Aztecs are 5-4 in conference, which isn't bad, but I don't know if they're going to be winning the Mountain West Conference anytime soon, but we'll see. And then jumping over to CBU to close out the college women's basketball side of things, CBU trounced Stephen F. Austin 97-75. That is a statement one right there, if I've ever seen one. As they're 1 game back of GCU, as like I said last week, courtesy of Daryl Trujillo and him working the Western Athletic Conference. I think it's the Western Athletic Conference magazine. Either way, just give Daryl Trujillo a follow at Daryl Golfer. I actually had him as a guest on Set Point, which is cool. He's a sports writer for the Inland Sports Show, and then he's also a writer for WAC Hoops Nation. So there you go. Yeah, WAC Hoops Nation. That's the thing that covers the WAC in men's and women's basketball, which is cool. All right, but back to CBU. They're back in action this Saturday when they hit the road to the Emerald City when they take on Seattle, or the Sleepless City in Seattle. I would not be surprised if CBU wound up trouncing Seattle. Nothing against Seattle, but they're 1-18. So for CBU, they actually don't get too big of a challenge until they face GCU. However, that being said, they just can't underestimate anybody. If they underestimate anybody, it's going to cost them. They underestimate Utah Valley, it costs them. Utah Tech is 3 games above 500. You don't want to underestimate them. UT Arlington is 10-10. You don't want to underestimate them. You just can't look ahead to that matchup against Grand Canyon. It's just a mistake, dude. And I don't know how they stomped all over Stephen F. Austin, but whatever they did, they got to take those takeaways from that matchup and basically apply them into their other WAC conference matches, or Western Athletic Conference matches. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the Lady Lancers, but for right now, I'm impressed by them. They're 16-2 overall, 8-1 conference. I think they've got a lot of up and up. Now, I'm not sure if they're eligible for the NCAA tournament, just because of wasn't it like the whole Division II to Division I thing? Regardless, or some sort of transition period. But either way, CBU is still kicking butt and taking names. And who knows? If it wasn't for USC and UCLA, I think, and maybe San Diego State, I think CBU women's hoops would be flocking with so much local talent. I mean, they kind of get overshadowed with all of the notable Power 5 SoCal women's volleyball or women's basketball teams. But you also got the Big West they got to compete with. And then they've got the West Coast Conference they also got to compete with. So I'm surprised CBU women's hoops isn't more of a hotbed for Southern California players. But I digress. All right, but that's going to do it for the college basketball portion of the show. We're going to take ourselves a quick little break. When we come back, we got some Lakers and Clippers to discuss. We got some LA Kings to discuss as they just fired their head coach. And we also have some NASCAR to go over as we have the Busch Light Clash this Sunday. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey there, sports fans. Are you looking for a sports show that maybe isn't 100% about sports?
Then you might want to check out the Sports Couple Perspectives right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Most sports shows cover only scores and stats, and while we're not opposed to that, we dig a little deeper into sports issues and some of the hottest topics in athletics.
In addition to sports, we take a journey through my neck of the woods, pop culture, with movie reviews of both sports and non-sports films.
Speaking of pop culture, make sure to participate in our game nights, where we quiz each other on our specialties, and you, the listeners, can win IE Sports Radio apparel.
We always have a great time learning more about each other's worlds, one show at a time.
So join us each week on the Sports Couple Perspectives, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, everyone? It's Drewski, the host of Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. On this station, we cover everything in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, from where we cover the Dallas Cowboys, the Dallas Stars, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Wings, Texas Rangers, TCU, SMU. We cover it all right here every Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you stay live with me on the Heart of Texas Sports on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, as Let's Learn About DMV Sports will be on later on today at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern, as there will be a little bit of discussion of the Baltimore Ravens, which obviously they unfortunately had a heartbreaker in terms of their season as it came to an end. But it's all good, as it was still a fantastic season.
Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas. Right here.
Me personally, as a Chargers fan, I was hoping they would have won, but I digress. Alright, so let's jump on into the second half of the show. So I actually found out the name of the Chargers strength and conditioning coach, or their strength coach. So the Chargers have hired Ben Herbert as their strength coach, and this was announced a few days ago. And J.J. Watt, it was actually J.J. Watt's strength coach at Wisconsin, and J.J. Watt calls him a quote-unquote truly a game changer, and he says he's one of the underrated moves about the Jim Harbaugh deal is the Chargers hiring Ben Herbert as their strength coach. And I unfortunately failed because I did not hit Auto DJ. So, well, on that note, it's time to give out Dum Dum of the Week, and we're going to start a little early with Dum Dum of the Week just because, unfortunately, I kept the drops playing. I definitely want to give a thank you to Gen B. So, unfortunately, because I kept the drops playing and I was unaware of it, I gotta give myself Dum Dum of the Week. So, unfortunately, because I can't keep track of the drops, I failed to click off Auto DJ. So, I have to give myself Dum Dum of the Week because I failed to pause the drops, let alone click off Auto DJ. So, to start off Dum Dum of the Week, I am this week's Dum Dum of the Week for not stopping the drops.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Yeah, that's my bad. Silly me, I really want to not leave to get up to get my speaker, but unfortunately, it is what it is, and I have to have my boy when it comes to Dumb of the Week. But back to the Chargers. So, in case y'all didn't hear what I just mentioned earlier before my massive blunder, the Chargers hired Ben Herbert as their strength coach, which is good. So, like I mentioned earlier, he was the strength coach at Wisconsin for J.J. Watt, which is nice. And according to Watt, he calls him truly a game changer. And he says he's one of the underrated moves about the Jim Harbaugh deal is the Chargers hiring Ben Herbert as their strength coach, which is good. So there you have it right there. And the Chargers might, hence the word might, be hiring offensive coordinator Greg Roman to be on Jim Harbaugh's coaching staff. So, I mean, that's good and all. But at the same time, I've also been hearing that the Chargers could be hiring other offensive coordinators. So we'll see what happens going forward. But again, this is the whole Chargers saga, and hopefully their rebuild can be up to snuff. So I should also mention that the Chargers are also playing the Ravens next season, as they're playing the entire AFC North, along with the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers. So there you have it right there. All right, but that is that for the Chargers, and that little bit of a nutshell thing right there. So there you have it. All right, now let's jump on into some NBA before I have another blunder. So NBA time. So the Lakers pulling off the win against the Celtics yesterday brought a smile to my face. I was grinning from ear to ear after the Lakers pulled off that amazing win. Keep in mind, there was no Anthony Davis, there was no LeBron James, and they pulled off that win over the Celtics on the road as they beat the Celtics 114-105. That was for Christmas, Celtics. Suck it. I'm just kidding. That's actually only their third home loss of the season, as they lost to the Clippers previously, and then I forget who else they lost to at home. I want to say it was like the Denver Nuggets, but it's still a pretty good win. It's still a very good win, and the Celtics don't really lose a whole lot at home. And yeah, it was the Nuggets that beat the Celtics back on January 19th for their first home loss of the season. And then the Clippers and Lakers were able to do so. So there you go. So while that win was great and all, the Lakers unfortunately wound up losing to two teams that I think the Lakers could have definitely beaten. So on Tuesday, the Lakers lost to the Hawks 138-122. No Anthony Davis in that regard, as LeBron James was also questionable with, I think, a hip injury, as Austin Reeves actually had to take over Superman duties as he had 28 points. He actually led the Lakers in the win over the Celtics last night, as he had 32 points. So Austin Reeves was dominating Boston. And then on Monday, the Lakers lost to the Houston Rockets 135-119. Kind of a tough loss just because, well, for starters, the Rockets are right on the coattails of the Lakers, as they allowed Jalen Green of the Rockets to have 34 points, while Anthony Davis led them with 23. Now, last Saturday might have been the game of the year. So we all know how Steph Curry and LeBron James have amazing battles with one another. This one was no different, as the Lakers took down the Golden State Warriors in Golden State 145-144 in double overtime. And despite multiple times where the Lakers allowed the Warriors to tie and possibly win the game, the Lakers were able to pull out the win. So, for those that watched it, late in regulation, Lakers were up 3. All they just need is one stop and defend the 3, because that's what the Warriors love to do. Game-tying three-pointer from, I think, Klay Thompson. It goes to overtime. Lakers were then up, I think they were up by like 4, and then they eventually were up 3 late in the game, late in overtime. And then, unfortunately, they wound up giving up another game-tying 3 to Steph Curry. Double overtime. So the Lakers were up 1. They shot a free throw, and then they missed a free throw. I think Austin Reeves was the one at the free throw line. So Lakers were up 2, And all they just need is one stop, and then they just got to bleed the clock and make their free throws. Steph Curry makes a 3 to put the Warriors up 1. I'm just like, ain't no way, dude. Ain't no way the Lakers are losing like this. So the Lakers eventually got to advance the ball in the front court, and LeBron James took it to the hoop, and he got fouled. And fortunately for him and the Lakers, LeBron James made both free throws. The Lakers were up 1, and the Warriors did not have any timeouts. They couldn't advance the balls. And eventually, the Lakers wound up winning, which was very fun. Always a nice day to beat Steph Curry and the Warriors. Nothing against Warriors fans, of course. And I know y'all are going to, all you Warriors fans are going to complain and say, oh my God, the Lakers were at the free throw line like 1,000 times. Yes, I get it, but that's just how the game is. Maybe instead of the Warriors, shooting 1,000 threes per game, maybe they should actually drive at the bloody hoop. As the Warriors took 58 three-point attempts. 58! The Lakers only took 27. And the Warriors made 23 three-pointers. And you're complaining about how the Lakers had more free throw attempts? I'm not trying to justify the Lakers winning, or I'm not trying to say the Lakers ultimately earned that win. It was a hard-fought game. But the team that had the ball last was able to basically win the game. And the Lakers had the ball last. Technically they did. And they made the most of their offensive possession in terms of going to the free throw line and making 2 free throws. And they silenced the heretics of LeBron James is afraid to drive at the hoop, or he's afraid to make free throws, or can't hit free throws late. The Lakers only missed 5 free throws all night, as well as the Warriors, though the Warriors only took 16 attempts from the charity stripe. And another thing is that the Lakers outboarded the Warriors 55-50. Which is nice and all. And the Lakers had 3 more turnovers than the Warriors, and they shot a higher percentage from the field in 48.5% to the Warriors just over 46%. So it was a hard-fought game, and at least for the Warriors, they don't plan to blow it up. They don't plan to trade Steph Curry or Klay Thompson or Draymond Green. They want to try to ride it out with those guys, even though they're getting very high up in age. So the Lakers are back in action Saturday when they head to the Big Apple to take on the New York Knicks. And then Monday they head down to Michael Jordan's team. No, not the Chicago Bulls, the Charlotte Hornets. And then this upcoming Thursday, the Lakers are back at home following the end of their Grammy road trip to take on the Denver Nuggets. And then next Friday, the Lakers host the New Orleans Pelicans. So the Lakers currently, they sit in 9th in the Western Conference, which is in play-in range, which is not ideal. So if the Lakers definitely want to not be in that play-in range, then honestly, they got to get their you-know-what together. And they got to get Anthony Davis healthy, as well as LeBron. But it is what it is. And who knows what they're going to do. What I can confirm is that the Lakers are not going to be trading LeBron James. Some were saying that LeBron James should be traded to the Knicks. Stephen A. But it's not going to happen. First and foremost, who would want to take on a 39-year-old LeBron James who needs load management? Second and foremost, I think LeBron wants to retire a Laker, if not a Cavalier. I think once LeBron James' career is all said and done, he'll sign a one-day contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers and retire there. So why not have LeBron ride out the rest of his time with the Lakers if he chooses to basically stay in the league? Like he says his goal is he wants to play basketball with his son, Bronny James. So Jen B says in the chat room, the only place he should be traded to is Cleveland. Yeah, I hope you can bargain with quite a bit, though. A.K.A. Evan Mobley, but I digress. All right, jumping over to the Clippers, and speaking of the Cavs, they actually did hand the Clippers a tough loss on Monday. They beat the Clippers 118-108. That's the bad news. The good news is the Clippers took down the Washington Lizards, because there ain't no W around there in the nation's capital, as the Clippers beat the Lizards on Wednesday 125-109. And then Saturday, the Clippers stomped all over the Celtics, as They crushed the Celtics 115-96. That's the biggest home loss for this season for the Celtics. So the Clippers going on the road and beating the Celtics was very impressive. And then last Friday, the Clippers beat the Toronto Raptors 127-107. So they had no hangover regarding the Lakers win. So the Clippers are also on their Grammy road trip as they take on the Detroit Pistons in Motor City tonight. And then Sunday, the Clippers take on the Miami Heat in the MIA. And then Monday, the Clippers end their Grammy road trip when they take on the Atlanta Hawks. Then Wednesday, the Clippers are back in action at home when they host the Pelicans. And then Saturday, the Clippers host the Detroit Pistons. So, yeah, there you have it in regards to the Clippers. I think the Clippers are still showing a lot more upside. They are third in the Western Conference, and hopefully for the sake of themselves, they don't trip on each other and they don't falter when it truly matters. Because there are some critics that are saying that they still don't trust the Clippers, aka the Inside the NBA crew. I kind of hope that the Clippers, for their sake, they're able to put it all together. It seems like they're getting better and better. As you remember how they were off to one of the worst starts with James Harden. Well, they've really picked it up, and they're third in the Western Conference and only 2 back of Minnesota and 1 back of Oklahoma City. I know Denver's on their coattails, but they're quite a bit ahead. They're quite a bit ahead of the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th team in the West. So all signs are pointing to the Clippers basically hosting or having home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs. And Gen B says, haha, the Lizards. If you know, you know. Yep, like I said, they're called the Lizards because there ain't no W in those Wizards. Just saying. All right, but that is that for the Clippers and Lakers. Jumping over to the NHL. All right, so this news was broken like 4 hours ago. The Kings have fired their head coach, Todd McLellan, after 5 seasons. So their interim coach is Jim Hiller. So, look. I totally understand that the Kings have had such a disappointing season. Well, not disappointing, but I'm so concerned for them just because, for starters, the Kings, I had a lot more high expectations for them. In their last 17 games, they're 3-8-6. That is bad. And you want to know why that's bad? They actually started the season 27-4. I don't know how to politely explain that, except that's horrible, dude. I get it, they have an aging goalie, but you just cannot have that hideous start. And I just hope for their sake the All-Star break is kind of the thing that needs to recharge their batteries. The good thing is that the Kings actually ended the first half of the league on a nice note as they beat the Nashville Predators 4-2. This past Sunday they lost to the St. Louis Blues in overtime 4-3. And then last Friday, the Kings lost to the Avalanche 5-1. But hey, at least the Kings are getting it together. And I hate that a coach has to be hired midway through the season, Brandon Staley. But you have to have changes in your program. 3-8-6 in your last 17 games is not cutting it. Yes, you get 6 points in those 17 games with ties and losses in overtime and shootout. But the 3 wins can only take you so far. And those 8 losses could loom large. And that could be the difference between the Kings making the playoffs and missing the playoffs. Because currently LA is 4th in the Pacific Division, and they're only 4 games ahead of Seattle. That could be a little bit concerning, just because between them, Edmonton, and Vegas, as well as Seattle and Calgary, it could basically be anyone making those playoffs between those teams. Vancouver I can definitely see in the playoffs, but we'll see what happens. All right, but that's that for the Kings right there. I think, again, maybe the Kings need to make some changes. I know, once again, they have a aging goalie. That is something they need in terms of their roster, because all they have is Phoenix Copley, who's 32 years old, and David Rittich, who's 31. That's pretty old, if you ask me, in my opinion. You kind of need some new blood in your team. I'm just saying. I know they have Anze Kopitar, who's 36, and Trevor Lewis, who's 37, but you still need to add some youth to your team. Oh, they also have Drew Doughty, or Doughty. Drew Doughty. He's 34 years old. So the Kings need to really, if they're not going to trade for a younger goalie or a better goalie, then they need to draft a better goalie. Otherwise, they're going to be up you-know-what creek when it comes to the future. Speaking of the future, the Ducks, even though they looked so promising, they still look terrible. The good news is they ended the first half of the season with a win in overtime against the San Jose Sharks. Then last Saturday, they beat the Minnesota Wild 3-2. And then last Thursday, I think I mentioned this already, they lost to the Dallas Stars 4-3, which is terrible. I just don't understand, as they gave up a goal like midway through the third period after they were up to 3-2, and the fact that they let the Dallas Stars score 30 seconds into overtime is just terrible. It's awful. And the Ducks they're just so terrible. They're just so bad. They're not on the level of San Jose, but they're only 5 points ahead of the Sharks. So if the Ducks want to somehow make the playoffs, then they actually need to win games as opposed to lose. They're the third worst team in the Western Conference, ahead of the San Jose Sharks and the Chicago Blackhawks. And then in the league, the Ducks are the third worst team in the league, ahead of the Sharks and the Blackhawks. So, yeah, Anaheim, you really got to get your you-know-what together, because you're wasting away all your good players. But we'll see what happens. But that is that for the NHL portion of the show. Let's jump to some NASCAR. So, yeah, y'all didn't think I was going to be talking about NASCAR or motorsports. So the motorsports season is kind of restarted, as there was the Rolex 24 this past weekend. Now, obviously, the Rolex 24 has nothing to do with SoCal Sports, unless there's like a driver that's local. But you want to know what is going to be this weekend is the Busch Light Clash. So it's actually a non-championship preseason NASCAR Cup Series exhibition event held in February before the season opening Daytona 500. And this takes place at the Memorial Coliseum, or the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, which was actually moved to there because from 1979 all the way to 2021, it actually was held at the Daytona International Speedway until 2022, when NASCAR said, hey, let's move it to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And honestly, it's a good thing that they moved it, just because, for starters, this is kind of my true opinion, but I feel NASCAR does not get a whole lot of publicity in terms of Southern California or California in general. Now, I get it, you have the Speedway in Long Beach, but I think that the Busch Clash in the Coliseum, or at the Coliseum, is big right there. And why not grow motorsports in Southern California or California in general? Just because I always see like motorsports races going to like the Midwest, like the Indy 500, like I mentioned. And then there's like other states that they go to, or other cities like Miami and whatnot. So I think it's great that the Busch Clash always takes place at the Coliseum, which is really good. And the event is one of two non-points races on the Cup Series schedule, the other being the NASCAR All-Star Race. So this is kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of breaking into the NASCAR season, which I think is pretty cool if you ask me. Yeah? And then the All-Star Race, it's basically just the best racers all around just facing off against one another. It's like the All-Star Game or All-Star event or the Pro Bowl. But the Busch Clash at the Coliseum is really nice, and honestly, it's very fun if you ask me. It's 150 laps, well, 350 in terms of 6 races, and the Busch Clash has actually had a bunch of other names. So 1979 all the way to 1997, and then 2020 to 2021, it was named the Busch Clash. Then 1998 to 2000, it was called the Bud Shootout. Then 2001 2001 to 2012 is the Budweiser Shootout. Then Sprint Unlimited was the name back in 2013 and 2016. And then Advanced Auto Parts Clash was the name in 2017 and 2019. And then I guess the current name is the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, which I think has a nice little ring to it. The surface is asphalt, and then the length is a quarter of a mile, and then there are 4 turns. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the full-on preview for the NASCAR Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, but if you want to hear more of the Busch Light Clash preview, you can tune into the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Daryl Kinsey Jr., Michael Ward, and Christopher Lehman. I've actually been a guest on the Extra Mile, as the Extra Mile crew just recapped the Rolex 24, like I mentioned. It's a unique race. It's not really anything of, I wouldn't say of too much significance, but it is the icebreaker that basically gets you into the NASCAR world. And I think that's awesome sauce. So the Rolex 24 is complete, and now we've got the Busch Light Clash, which I think is going to be epic. And I can't wait for the Busch Light Clash. And I'll try to tune in as much as I can. I really want to see the Busch Light Clash so I can have a good chance. And I'm glad it's this Sunday, just because the following Sunday is Super Bowl, which I don't care about because my teams aren't playing, or the Rams and Chargers aren't playing, but whatever. I should also make note that the Super Bowl will be coming back to SoFi Stadium, I want to say in 2028, which I think is cool. And hopefully the Rams will either A, have their franchise quarterback by then, or Matthew Stafford will try to lead him to that promised land yet again. So time will tell in that regard. But back to the Busch Light Clash, I'm looking forward to it. The sponsor of the Busch Light Clash is Anheuser-Busch. But that is going to do it for the motorsports portion of the show, and there you have it right there. And I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun times, as the format is actually going to be 350 laps and 7 races, and then 36 charter teams to 4 open teams participating in qualifying. And then, based on laps, cars will be put in 4 heat races of 25 laps each. So there you have it right there. And then the feature is 150 laps, which is the green flag only, which was last season. So hopefully for the sake of Southern California and for NASCAR fans, it doesn't rain, because there is actually supposed to be some rain here, as I experienced rain last night. So I hope that is not the case in that regard. I would hate to see the Busch rain. Oh my! It actually is supposed to rain on Sunday. 70% chance of rain. Well, I would hate to see that, but Mother Nature shows no mercy. All right, but that's going to do it for the NASCAR portion of the show. Yes, I will talk NASCAR when need be, especially if it's going to be, if it's a local winner winning, or if there's going to be a race held in like Southern California, like the Long Beach Motorsports Way or the Busch Light Clash held at the Los Angeles Coliseum. So there you have it. All right, but now it's time to go over our dum-dums of the week. So we have multiple dum-dums of the week. I already gave myself dum-dum of the week because I did not stop the drops, and this is what happens when I press the wrong button, which, yeah, that would only happen to me. To me, unfortunately. But we have a few dum-dums of the week to go over, and it starts off in the NBA. So remember how I was talking about the Baltimore Ravens and how they unfortunately had a great season, but unfortunately they crumbled like a cookie in the AFC Championship to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? Well, here's the reason why, and here's one of the reasons why. I mean, obviously, Lamar wasn't his best, but that wasn't the reason why they lost. The reason why they lost is they were really running the ball really well in the playoffs in the regular season. They have amazing running backs. They being led by Gus Edwards, and Lamar Jackson is a man on a mission when it comes to running the ball with themselves. But you want to know how many times the Baltimore Ravens had designed runs? They had a grand total of 8 designed runs in that game against Kansas City in the AFC Championship. But it gets worse. Gus Edwards only had 3 carries. 3 carries. And remember, the Ravens only had 8 designed runs. 3 carries for the Gus bus. 8 designed carries overall. Okay, I'm just going to say this right now. I'm a Chargers fan, but Ravens, what are you doing? The run game was supposed to be your best friend. The Chiefs don't have the best run defense. I mean, it's certainly not bad, but their run defense is mid at best. Maybe a little bit over mid. But how do you not give the ball to Gus Edwards? How do you have only 8 designed runs? At one point, the Baltimore Ravens' leading receiver was Lamar Jackson. Except I don't think so. But at one point, Lamar Jackson actually threw and caught a pass from himself. It was that bad for the Ravens. And I just don't understand this. So, oh man, I'm just going to say this. As a Chargers fan, I'm so disappointed in the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, yes, I understand the greatness of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. But how do you only have 8 designed runs and 3 carries for Gus Edwards? Are you trying to lose? It just seemed like the Ravens were not the whole different Ravens. It seemed like the aliens from Moron Mountain invaded their body and took the talent. In addition, the Ravens were making bonehead decisions by, having unsportsmanlike penalties and having costly penalties. Oh, and the coup de grace was Zay Flowers. So I was singing praises about Zay Flowers early on in the day. However, or early on in the show. However, I will just say, Zay Flowers had a big gain. It was in the second half, and then he had a taunting penalty after he made that big gain, which is unacceptable. And it gets worse for Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers almost reached the goal line, but then I forget his first name. It's Snead. It's not Willie Snead, but Snead knocked the ball out of Zay Flowers' hands as he was heading to the goal line, and eventually the Chiefs recovered for a touchback. And it was at that point, Zay Flowers was so mad at himself, he actually hit his hand on the bench. And keep in mind, benches are made of metal. So I can't give this one award to Zay Flowers because he did all that he could. Lamar Jackson did all that he could in order to try to will the Ravens to victory. But the Ravens altogether get dumped of the week for their incompetence and crumbling at the seams in terms of the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship. Keep in mind, and L'Jarius Sneed, thank you, Jen B. So L'Jarius Sneed was the one that had the fumble, or the one that forced the fumble against Zay Flowers. So, yeah, the Chiefs, in my opinion, or not the Chiefs, the Ravens, in my opinion, are dumb of the week, and I'm now nervous because I said the Chiefs were not going to repeat as Super Bowl champs. It's starting to look like that prediction is starting to age like spoiled milk. So, Baltimore Ravens, you failed miserably for starters. Don't even say they only lost by 7. It wasn't even remotely close. Also, Justin Tucker shouldn't have been in the way of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in terms of warm-ups. So, congratulations, Ravens. You played yourself. You're no longer in contention of winning the Super Bowl, and now you're dumb of the week. It's probably par for the course when it comes to you guys.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Oh man. Just unacceptable. And staying with the NFL in regards to Dum of the Week, I hate when it comes down to a kicker. So I forgot to make note of this Dum of the Week. I had multiple Dum-Dums of the Week last week. However, I will just say, sometimes when a kicker misses, the world is on. They kind of have the weight on the world on their shoulders in regards to making a kick, especially when they're on someone's fantasy team. So, unfortunately, Tyler Bass missed a pivotal field goal in the AFC divisional round, and the Chiefs were able to get the first down and milk the clock and beat the Buffalo Bills in the divisional round. So, unfortunately for poor Tyler Bass, the dude basically missed a kick, and trust me, I know this from as a Chargers fan. The Chargers have had multiple kickers that have missed big field goals, which have cost the Chargers either a chance to make the playoffs or a chance to advance in the playoffs. For Tyler Bass, I just feel horrible because the dude got death threats just because he missed the field goal. Now, I know all of Bills Mafia, they are awesome. They would not really try to send death threats to Tyler Bass, but whoever was sending death threats to Tyler Bass, you bullied him into basically deactivating his social media. Why in Jupiter's Jingle Shoot are we still doing this? I feel so horrible for Tyler Bass. It's kind of like when Cody Parkey got death threats after he double doinked it in the matchup against, or the divisional round matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles when the Bears were the 3 seed. But still, to everyone who continues to bully people and make death threats on social media, shame on you. Shame on you. And I hope Tyler Bass does not let this kick define him. I think he's a fantastic kicker, though I think Cameron Dicker is better. But he's a fantastic kicker, and that kick does not define his career. He'll have many more opportunities to be the hero and possibly redeem himself. And if and when the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl, this whole thing of him missing wide right will all be water under the bridge. But to everyone that made death threats to Tyler Bass, whether you're a Bills fan or not, shame on you. You should be ashamed. You are a disgusting human being. I hope you find peace outside of this. And for that, you are Dumb Dumb of the Week.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Alright, now we gotta go over the final Dumb Dumb of the Week. And unfortunately, we gotta keep it in the NFL as, look, I get aggression in terms of games. Brandon Staley was that guy who wanted to put the game in the hands of his quarterback, Justin Herbert. But I think you're starting to notice a nice little pattern here. Dan Campbell, what are you doing in regards to the Detroit Lions? I get going for it on 4th down. It's great to be aggressive. But when it comes to executing, you just can't do it. And here's the thing. The Lions failed on 4th and 2 I think they were in the red zone of the San Francisco 49ers, and unfortunately that turned into a touchdown for the Niners, and it eventually swung the game on its head. Then Dan Campbell and the Lions go for it on 4th down yet again. Now, I get it. You don't want to put the game on your kicker because Michael Badgley is anything but the money badger. As a Chargers fan, I know that from experience. But what are you doing going for it on 4th and 3 after you couldn't even convert a 4th and 2? And here's the thing. That kind of eventually wind up nipping the Detroit Lions in the butt. But when you go for it on 4th down, if you convert, you're a genius. If you don't convert, well, I'm just going to also say you're looked at as questionable or a moron or over-aggressive. So I feel bad for Dan Campbell that he's going to get some criticism, as he did say that he does not regret going for it on 4th down, but at the same time, you got to execute better. And also, why did the Lions shy away from their run game? Regardless, Dan Campbell, I love you and all, you're a great coach, but you're kind of dumb of the week just because that over-aggression kind of cost you, because if you kick the field goal, you're still up 3 scores, and eventually the game is at worst going to overtime. If not, you're up 3. But you just don't want to trust the money badger in certain situations. I mean, look what happened with the Packers. They wound up trusting Anders Carlson, and he wound up whiffing in the divisional round, hitting it wide left. So, Dan Campbell, forgive me for doing this. You're a great kneecap biter, but damn, Campbell, you're Dum-Dum of the Week.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And then lastly, we got our last Dum-Dum of the Week. Yes, we have multiple Dum-Dums of the Week going on. So, I hate to give this one to my brother here, but, so, I love my brother. He was an amazing host when I visited Dallas-Fort Worth and when we went to Austin. However, when I flew back, he was kind enough to basically pay for my flight, or we split the bill when it came to booking my flight. However, when he registered me for my flight, he put his birth date instead of mine. And then when I was checking in to the airport to catch my flight, unfortunately, I had to go and get all my information updated. So, oh goodness, it was a little stressful and it was a little inconvenient, but thankfully I was not late to my flight, and thankfully, I was able to catch my flight back home to Southern California. Yes, I'm back in Southern California after I was in Dallas-Fort Worth. So there you have it right there. But oh my God, I was a little worried at first. I was like, what is going on? Why is my thing not? Why am I doing this? Why is my information not going? I feared I was hacked, and I feared I wasn't going to be able to go home. But thankfully, they just said, oh, your birth date's wrong on your ID as opposed to the information you put. And it said my brother's birth date as opposed to my birth date. And I'm like, oh no. So it was a little frustrating, but I just gotta say, I was able to iron it out. But for my brother, I hate to do this to you, Justin, but you're kind of Dum-Dum of the Week just because you can't be doing that to me. My heart actually was jumped out a little out of my chest. So, to my brother, I love you. You're amazing. Thank you for being a great host, but you're Dum-Dum of the Week for making me go through that thing at an airport. This is the reason why I don't fly out that much.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
That might be the one rare time I give my brother Dum-Dum of the Week. But he was an amazing host at Dallas-Fort Worth, and I love him. But I just did not like how I had to go through that inconvenience of basically having to get all my information updated and whatnot. So there you have it. That's it for Dum-Dum of the Week. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. It is that time for me to get on out of here, because I got plans in about 45 minutes. Yeah, dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Hey. You had your chance, man. But thank you for everyone for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Huge shout out to the chat room, Jen B, Ralph Caliste, and Larry B for popping into the chat room. I really do appreciate y'all. Hopefully I don't have any more glitches. Hopefully I actually press the right button in regards to the show. Hopefully I actually remember to click off Auto DJ. But everything will be ironed out. I'm still getting used to being back here in Southern California as opposed to being in Dallas-Fort Worth. I will be back on Monday at my original time at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern for Set Point. I'm glad to be back at my normal time. Nothing against being on at doing my podcast in Bedford, but it just feels normal being here in my home and doing my podcast. But for everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourself a great rest of the evening. Have yourself a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy all the SoCal sports action. Try to be dry just because, well, for starters, it's going to be raining quite a bit all the way up until Wednesday. I will see you all on Monday for Set Point. Have a great rest of the weekend, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!